At minus 50 degrees Celsius, exposed skin freezes in less than 2 minutes. Engines run non-stop or die forever, and 40-ton trucks race deadlines over ice so thin, the wrong move can mean vanishing beneath it. This is how ice road truckers survive 400 miles of frozen death roads, risking isolation and sudden catastrophe for a lifeline the world depends on. What does it really take to cross a highway that can kill you before sunrise? Every winter, a network of roads appears across the Arctic, routes that exist for only a few months each year, carved not through land, but over the frozen skin of lakes and rivers. These are the ice roads, temporary highways that stretch for hundreds of miles across some of the coldest, most remote places on Earth. Their purpose is stark and essential: to deliver everything needed to survive and operate in the far north, from diesel fuel and mining equipment to food, medicine, and mail. Without these roads, entire communities and billion-dollar mines would be cut off for half the year, unreachable by any other means. The ice road season is brief. In Canada's Northwest Territories, Alaska, and Siberia, the window opens only when the ice reaches at least 42 inches thick, enough to bear the weight of a fully loaded 18-wheeler hauling up to 60 tons. As soon as the spring sun returns, the roads vanish, melting back into open water and leaving no trace until the next deep freeze. For the villages and outposts scattered across the Arctic, ice roads are a lifeline. They carry the entire year's supplies in a frantic rush against time and weather. Miss this window, and a community might wait months for the next delivery. The stakes are measured in survival, not just convenience. Only a handful of drivers, like Mac, whose name is spoken with a mix of respect and worry among dispatchers, have the experience and nerve to take on these runs year after year. Out here, the road is nothing but ice, and the only certainty is that the environment decides who makes it across. At minus 50 degrees Celsius, the air bites through layers of clothing, and the inside of a truck cab becomes a fragile shelter against a world that wants to kill you. Mac checks the thermometer every hour. He knows the numbers by heart. At minus 50, exposed skin can freeze solid in less than 5 minutes. The cold turns metal brittle and rubber hard. Diesel fuel, thick as honey, starts to gel, threatening to choke the engine. If the truck stops running, there's no starting it again, not until spring. That's why the engines never sleep, idling day and night, burning through fuel just to keep the lifeblood moving. The weight these trucks carry is staggering. A fully loaded rig can tip the scales at 40, sometimes 60 tons. The only thing holding all that steel and cargo above the black water is a sheet of ice, 42 inches, measured and checked, drilled and scanned. Any less and the road is closed. Any more, and it's just enough to trust with your life. The math is simple and unforgiving. If the ice is too thin, the truck goes in. If a driver pushes the speed, the weight sends a pressure wave racing under the surface. Too fast, and the ice can split open ahead of the cab, swallowing the truck in seconds. Every decision is a calculation. Mac drives with his boots pressed against the floor, feeling for vibrations, listening for the subtle groan of ice under strain. There are no second chances. Out here, the numbers are everything. 42 inches minus 50, 60 tons. Miss one and you're gone. Mac's world shrinks to the size of his cab. The only light comes from the dashboard, the faint glow of a coffee thermos wedged between the seats, and the pale blue of his GPS. Out here, 400 miles from the nearest town, the cab is more than a workplace. It's a survival pod. Insulation lines every wall, trapping what little heat the engine can muster. He checks the vents, adjusting the flow to keep frost from creeping across the inside of the windshield. Every surface is cold to the touch, even after hours of driving. 12 hours behind the wheel is a normal shift. 18 isn't rare when the schedule gets tight. The radio crackles with static, a lifeline to dispatch, and the handful of other drivers scattered across the ice. For meals, Mac heats canned stew on a small propane stove, careful to vent the cab and avoid carbon monoxide. He keeps a stash of high-calorie snacks, jerky, chocolate, powdered soup, within arm's reach. Water bottles freeze solid if left too close to the door, so he tucks them into his sleeping bag during rest breaks. Sleep comes in short bursts, wrapped in layers inside the insulated sleeper. The engine idles through the night, rumbling just loud enough to remind him that warmth is temporary and borrowed. Emergency supplies fill every spare compartment: thermal blankets, flares, a hand crank radio, and a survival kit packed for the possibility of days alone. Mac keeps a satellite beacon clipped to his vest, the only guarantee that if something goes wrong, someone might eventually come looking. Isolation settles in, a steady pressure behind his eyes. Out here, the hardest battle isn't always with the cold or the road, it's with his own thoughts. Before a single truck crosses the ice, the real work begins in the dead of winter. Crews armed with augers and ground-penetrating radar move across the frozen lakes, drilling test holes every few hundred feet. Each core sample is measured, logged, then compared against GPR scans that sweep the road's length, mapping thickness to within 5 centimeters. The numbers matter. If the ice reads under 42 inches, the route stays closed, no matter how desperate the schedule. When natural ice growth stalls, engineers turn to artificial thickening. Snowplows clear every inch of insulating snow, exposing the surface to the brutal cold and speeding up ice formation. In some stretches, water is pumped onto the ice at night, flooding the surface and freezing in layers. Each new layer adds precious inches, transforming thin margins into safe passage for 60-ton loads. The process is slow and relentless, dictated by temperature swings and the ice's unpredictable response. Route engineers track every reading in real time, feeding data to dispatchers who adjust load limits and speed caps. A single bad number, a thin spot missed by radar, a misread core, can mean disaster later. The road is marked with reflective poles, each one a silent warning of where the ice has passed muster and where caution reigns. Every mile is a calculation, every crossing a gamble. The science is precise, but the margin for error is razor thin. Out here, the difference between life and loss is measured in inches and seconds. Whiteout sweeps across the ice, erasing the horizon in a blur of swirling snow. Mac leans forward, searching for the faint reflection of the marker poles, but the world outside his windshield has vanished. The cab fills with the sound of wind and the low hum of the engine, his only anchors as visibility drops to nothing. Somewhere beneath him, the ice groans, a sound that cuts through the storm and tightens the grip on the steering wheel. Every ton of his truck presses down, sending a pressure wave rippling ahead, unseen and unstoppable. He eases off the throttle, heart pounding, knowing that even a small surge in speed could fracture the surface. The road beneath him flexes, alive with stress. Then, a sharp crack splits the silence, running like lightning across the frozen lake. Mac's instincts take over. There's no time to think, only to react. Mac grabs the escape hammer from the dash and swings hard at the side window, glass shattering as freezing air rushes in. He pulls on his thermal suit, hands shaking, and clips his personal locator beacon to his chest. Water creeps up the cab floor, icy and merciless. The cold bites instantly, stealing breath and strength. Mac forces the window wider, pushes through, and hauls himself onto the ice, boots scraping for grip. The radio crackles, dispatch relays that search and rescue is en route, but every minute counts. He stumbles away from the sinking truck, muscles locking in the cold. In the search and rescue log from Lac de Gras, rescuers arrive just inside the hypothermia window, 24 minutes after the call. Mac wraps himself in a foil blanket, beacon flashing, as the distant thump of helicopter blades finally cuts through the silence. Every winter, more than 2,000 miles of temporary ice roads are built across northern Canada, Alaska, and Siberia, serving as the only supply line for entire communities and industries. This documentary has shown how drivers like Max Stone face minus 50 degrees Celsius cold, 12-hour shifts, and 60-ton loads on ice that must be measured to the inch. The archival record documents dozens of incidents where trucks vanished beneath the surface in seconds, while rescue logs reveal that survival depends on seconds and strict protocol. Yet, the full number of lives lost on remote stretches remains unknown, as some records are incomplete or classified. Today, warming winters are shortening the ice road season and increasing risk, as confirmed by engineering studies and recent route closures. What's clear is that every trip north remains a gamble, where precision and preparation are the only defense against a hostile environment. The ice may hold or it may not, and for those who drive these frozen highways, certainty is never guaranteed.